Luetkemeyer is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's interesting that we believe the government can do something better than the private sector. I heard numerous of the witnesses today talk about all the errors that are made by the private sector credit bureaus, and I'm not defending them. They're not perfect. They're human. They make errors. But if you believe the government is going to make less errors than the private sector, who has to be responsible for being able to have good information out and can be sued for it, which the government cannot, you're either naive or misinformed or worse. And I can tell you right now, as being a ranker on small business, the PPP program, which was administered through the banks, had huge advantages over the EIDL program. The EIDL program was completely administered by the SBA. It's got almost a third of the loans are fraudulent. If you expect the government to be able to put together a program that is going to be error-free, you're in a wrong planet. Along that line, the government's going to have more errors, I believe. Mr. Kwan, I got a question for you on this. Listen very carefully. I believe the information you're going to get is very poor information because it's not going to be complete. Government delays everything. Think IRS. Do they do anything on a timely fashion? No. This is another agency that's going to be riffed with fraud, riffed with delays, with incompetent and incomplete information, old data, delays in getting it fixed. And what does that mean? That means if you're a lender, are you going to rely on this information? I don't think so. If you're a lender, if you rely on just this agency alone, because it's poor information, I would think you're going to increase the cost of the loans you make on this information and probably have less access to credit. Mr. Kwan, am I wrong?
You're absolutely right, Mr. Congressman.
Thank you for that. Along the line of why would anybody want to do this? Why would we want the government to get in to having more information like this? Ms. Traub gave us the answer. She said it's about control. Control what? Control information, control who gets loans, who gets financed. Guess what? Again, think IRS. You're using and weaponizing another agency here against people who they disagree with, either politically or for any other reason. Think Operation Choke Point. Here we go again. The government is picking winners and losers and picking out people who may be doing nothing wrong, have a legal business, have a legal right to access to credit, and yet the government's getting in the middle of this and scoring them in a way that's detrimental to their ability to get loans and whatever. Am I wrong on that, Mr. Kwan?
You're also absolutely right.
Thank you very much for that. The other thing I want to talk about here a little bit is lenders. We're talking about credit scores this morning. Why? Because people need access to credit. The lenders need this information to be able to judge accordingly whether somebody is worthy of loaning money, be it a home, a car, a business, whatever. They assess risk. The interest rate is always reflective of risk. And the more information they have, the better they can assess the risk. If the lenders have incomplete amounts of information, this is why you see the private sector credit bureaus trying to find more ways right now, even though they're not required to take some of these different things like rent payments, utility payments, telecom payments, service streaming payments. Those are all being used right now by a lot of the different private sector folks to assess risk, to be able to assess an individual's ability to get credit. Those are important things. I support those. We've had a bill out of here not too long ago, a year or two ago, that actually increased that. I supported that. I think it's a good idea. The more information you have, the better. The lenders can look at an individual and assess that risk and give people more access to credit. It's very important. So at the end of the day, it's behoving to the lenders to be able to get as much information as possible. And it's behooving to the private sector folks, because they're in competition against each other, believe it or not, they are in competition, because lenders pick and choose which ones of these they want, to be able to get as much information as possible and who can be more predictive. Who could be more predictive about the ability of somebody to pay back that loan? That is a really, really important thing, and I think we're missing the point. We're sitting here looking at the individual. The reason the individual wants this information out there is so they have access to credit, and we've forgotten all about that. When you give that information to the government, to allow them to oversee all this, you've just opened a whole nother can of worms, and I think you really have denigrated the individual's ability to get access to credit. With that, I see my time's up. I yield back.